Now she's out there alone, pregnant with your child. Probably already halfway to Ohio by now. Tommy, are you okay? Call me, okay?
Now, I mentioned earlier this season, AUSA saying working for the Ortegas wasn't on any of our bingo cards. That's something that caught us all off guard. But Maria being pregnant, I do think if you paid attention to the clues that they left in season 2, as well as what we've recently seen in the World of Power, I don't think any of us are actually that surprised that Tommy Jr. is on his way. However, remember, this is Power, and when have we ever seen a baby survive in the World of Power? It's never happened before, but is this time different? That's the question we're going to be asking throughout this breakdown, and the question that we're going to come back around to right at the end. Before then, there's a lot to go through in terms of the history, the story of Maria finding out she's pregnant, her having doubts, the dinner scene that we're going to see in episode 6, a potential hit on Maria that could change things and change alliances. Because if Maria were to be caught either by the Marquez cartel or the CBI, that definitely is something that would bring Tommy and Miguel together. And let's be real, there definitely will be a scare when it comes to Maria's pregnancy, that's for sure. But first up, let's take a look at the history and what we've seen in the World of Power before. Now, when it comes to babies in the World of Power, from what we've seen, none have ever survived for various different reasons. Back in Power, we know the one that hurt Tommy the most was Holly. She found out she was pregnant, but was too scared to tell Tommy. She told Tasha, and that's how we found out a bit later on. And we all know how much that broke him. He wouldn't have done what he did back in season 3 had he known Holly was pregnant. In Power Book 2 Ghost, there was Diana back in season 4. She was pregnant with Tariq being the father, which did actually stop him from pulling the trigger. Diana decided she wanted to keep the baby, and they had this conversation where they decided to try and kind of make things work. But Detective Felicia Lewis, with a couple of kicks to the stomach, took that baby away. Now in Raising Kanan, there were a couple of situations which ended in the same way. That was ironically Rock and Crystal in and around the same time. Both decided to get an abortion. But with Crystal's abortion, it was more so Kanan kind of pushing her in that direction, whereas with Rock, she made that decision on her own. So the history would suggest, based on what we've seen in the World of Power, the history doesn't favour Maria and her pregnancy. Now, going into season 3, this was one of the big topics of discussion in my predictions and breakdowns, not just because of common trends that we've seen across Power. As I always say, we look at the evidence, facts and findings, and we always base our predictions based on trends and history, but they did also leave us clues in season 2. The conversation around whether they ever planned to have kids in the future when they were at the park, or the moment when Tommy reached out and touched Holly's baby bump. I do think that was very symbolic for what happened in Tommy's past, how he has many regrets, how he had another chance with Maria, but also a warning at the same time from Holly. He can't have both. That's when I first thought, yep, Maria is going to be pregnant 100%. And I even posted a big thread over on X back in October 2023, breaking down the psych and the potential pregnancy. That was way back in 2023. There was then Maria eating ice cream, saying the smell of Miguel's cigar was making her stomach churn, her becoming emotional at work just in episode 5. The clues were definitely adding up until the big reveal right towards the end. Now, Maria was definitely getting excited, and you could tell. She dropped that text to Tommy saying she's got exciting news. She bought a baby grow which had the print Barcelona on the front. That's where Tommy and Maria planned a little romantic weekend getaway. But in that moment, she looked around and saw Tommy's loft obliterated in bullets. As it is, she was already emotional. She heard the story of the kid shooting himself with her mum's boyfriend's gun, and then she comes home to the loft absolutely obliterated in bullets and blood. So you can understand why she's actually kind of scared, confused, and where the doubts may actually start to creep in. She's never been scared before. She's someone who even said herself she's grown up in this life and she knows who she's dating. She's been and seen it all growing up in the Garcia household. When they were also attacked by the Marquez cartel earlier in the streets back in 302, she wasn't even fazed one bit. She just reacted and did what needed to be done in that moment. In a reflex moment, her first thought was to help Bones, which was a combination of her growing up in the Garcia household and also her being a nurse. But this was different because she's now carrying a baby. She's a bit emotional at this moment in time as well. There are probably a million and one thoughts flying through her head. So you can definitely understand why Maria would start to have her doubts. But with that being said, she will come around and she will tell Tommy in episode 6. I do think we've already got a hint of it in the official trailer. We've also seen other clues from previous teasers and trailers as well. She will definitely come around and tell Tommy she is pregnant. So Christmas definitely isn't cancelled. Christmas definitely has come early for Tommy. She will also be sticking around because, just like we went through in my previous breakdown, there are a few scenes that we're left to see from the official trailer. She's going to be there encouraging Tommy to take the coalition back when it seems like he's been kicked out. So she is going to be there encouraging him to go and get it back, not leave it behind. She definitely is riding with Tommy right until the end, that's for sure. So whatever doubts that she does have at this moment in time, I'm sure Tommy will reassure her he will keep her safe. Now, we all know she's going to tell Tommy at some point in episode 6, but will she also tell Miguel? Something else I raised in my trailer breakdown for episode 6 was that it does look like we are set for that Garcia/Egan family dinner scene, the first of its kind in Force. The scene where we hear Tommy mentioning that he'll do anything to protect Maria. You've got Tommy in the dark navy jumper. It does also look like they're in a restaurant based on the background. So it does look like we're getting that dinner scene in episode 6. And now the next question is, when we do get to that dinner, will she tell Miguel that she's pregnant? Will she reveal it at this dinner? Because this definitely is big news. It's huge news that will change the game in so many different ways. For example, when Tariq was pointing his gun at Diana in Book 2 Ghost, if Monet hadn't walked in and if Diana hadn't told Tariq that she was pregnant, with Tariq being the father, it probably would have ended in a different way. Same thing here. If Miguel finds out Maria is pregnant with Tommy being the father, does that then change his mind in terms of wanting him dead? Will he reconsider the hit that he's got planned with Roberto Ortega? I mean, definitely possible. I'd probably say that's actually kind of highly likely. I do think that's something that would make Miguel change his mind. But is it too late to cancel the hit? And this is where I do want to break down two possible scenarios, one with the Marquez cartel and one with CBI. With Roberto Ortega and the Marquez cartel, is it already too late to cancel the hit? He may have already given the details to Ortega based on their last conversation. They may already even be on their way. And if they are, if the Marquez cartel does come during this restaurant and during this dinner scene, could Maria be the one who gets caught in the crossfire? And this being Miguel Garcia's fault? I can definitely see that happening because even if Miguel tries to call off the hit, you're talking about the cartel. They'll have the details of Tommy Egan's whereabouts and where he'll somewhat be in a vulnerable position. They're definitely going to take that shot, no doubt. Now, an alternate scenario that I do have stuck in the back of my mind ever since we watched the official trailer for season 3 is that what if the CBI inadvertently hit Maria? We know Tommy will be kicked out of the CBI. That's going to happen pretty soon. We then have the scene where we have the funeral. We've got Tommy walking out with Maria and Miguel Garcia is also in the back. This is a scene where it does seem like the CBI are going to be rolling up on the funeral. You've got Jannard looking like he's just itching to pull the trigger as soon as they open those front doors. So could it actually be CBI who hit Maria that eventually brings Miguel and Tommy together? We know Tommy's going to be kicked out of the CBI. We just went through it in my last breakdown. So this would only add further fuel to the fire between them, while also giving a reason for Tommy and Miguel to team up against CBI. So out of the two scenarios, which both sound plausible, let me know what you think down below in the comment section and let me know which scenario you're leaning more towards. Because no doubt there will be a scare at some point. Gary Lennon teased a proper love story between Tommy and Maria, but this is also the world of power. There definitely will be a big scare at some point. I'm personally leaning more towards CBI being behind it because it just adds further petrol to the fire between Tommy and CBI and gives Tommy and Miguel kind of a common enemy to target. I'm hoping I'm wrong in terms of Maria being hit. I'm hoping that doesn't play out because I really do want this to be different. I really do want the baby to survive because I do think it adds a completely new and fresh dynamic to Tommy's story arc that we've never seen before. For example, how does Tommy now view the world once he has a kid? I'm sure many of you guys who have been blessed by having kids definitely see the world different. And I do wonder if it's something that would make Tommy reconsider the streets, even if it's just for a second. I personally think he's street through and through regardless, especially because he's with someone who does understand. He's with someone who's grown up in a family who are all about the streets. But it would be very interesting to kind of just gauge Tommy's thoughts and see whether he does actually see the world different. So I am actually hoping nothing does go wrong. But like we mentioned before, we do have to go on the history. And babies in the world of power, they honestly don't have a good track record. At some point, there definitely will be a big scare. Now, based on everything that we've just been through and coming back around to the question that I asked at the beginning of the breakdown, will this time be different? Based on everything that we've been through, the history, knowing the world of power, I think we know at some point there's probably going to be a moment where we're going to be asking the question and thinking, shit, will the baby even survive? But something just tells me that this time is different. Because I do think Gary Lennon will kind of want to just break the curse and the chain that we've seen before. He's already teased that he wants to tell a proper love story between Tommy and Maria. And as I mentioned earlier on, with Tommy having a baby of his own, it just adds a dynamic to his character that we've never seen before. He's had to protect family before, but this is definitely different. He'll be carrying Tommy Jr., although it would actually be interesting to see what they'd actually name their kid. But he'll finally have a kid of his own, and we all know how much Tommy loves family. Despite what we see between him and Kate, their relationship, he's someone who is fiercely loyal to his mother, which is something that they teased in Power Origins. So I'm hoping this time is different, and I do think it will be. But that's just based on my opinion, which does kind of go against the grain of what we've seen in Power before, and goes against where I constantly mention we have to go on the evidence, facts, findings, and the history. History tells us this baby probably has no chance, but it is just a gut feeling that they are going to do something different. Because it's an arc that is missing from Tommy's story when you kind of think about it, before they close his character off for good, which I do think is coming in Power Legacy, and if they go ahead with that Power movie. And if you kind of think about it, and if Tommy is killed off, his legacy will still live on through D-Mac, through Tariq, and through Tommy Jr. What's also interesting is how Gary Lennon has created all these triangles this season, and how we're actually seeing new ones take shape during the season. And here's another. Tommy, Maria, and their baby. That's another triangle. He did also mention one person loses out in each triangle, and I'm hoping nobody does in this particular one, but let's wait and see. So that's where my particular thoughts are on Maria having this baby. I do think there will be a big scare at some point. She may even be caught in a crossfire between the Marquez cartel or the CBI, but I'm really hoping it's not fatal, and I'm really hoping the baby does make it as well. So I'm particularly going for this time being different. The only thing that makes me kind of nervous is how Gary Lennon did mention there is one person who loses out in each triangle, and this is a new triangle. But let me know your thoughts. That's where we are at this moment in time when it comes to the big breaking news from episode 5, Maria being pregnant. We've run through a couple of scenarios involving the Marquez cartel, CBI, and how this baby will most likely change the dynamic and relationship between Tommy and Miguel, which may or may not be because Maria gets caught in the crossfire. But will the baby survive? Will this time be different? I personally think it will. It's just a gut feeling, but the floor is now yours. Let me know where you stand. Drop all your thoughts in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.